Today on The Big Story, all eyes were on the elusive Ring of Fire. If you've missed it, fret not, well, we bring to you snippets of the rare solar eclipse. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas, Hong Kong pro-democracy activists keep up with protests. 7 months after being adrift at sea for 80 hours, Mr. John Low is looking forward to a new lease of life. We caught up with Mr. Low to see how he has been since the life-changing incident. It's 5:30 p.m. here in Singapore and you're watching The Big Story, where we will discuss the hottest topics of the day and explain why it matters. I'm Haryanto Diman, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. Before we begin, we would like to wish you a happy Boxing Day and hope you had a good Christmas holiday. For the first time in 2 decades, a rare ring of fire known as an annular solar eclipse occurred earlier today. The phenomenon occurs when the moon moves across the sun but is too far from Earth to entirely blot out the sun. If you missed it today, the next annular solar eclipse will take place in 2063. The event, dubbed the greatest astronomical event in Singapore, saw sky watchers flock to places like Jurong Lake Gardens, Hong Lim Green and Science Centre Singapore to catch the event. The Straits Times was at Marina Barrage earlier to capture the eclipse.
Watched one when I was a little boy and was only 5 years old in Romania, so it's not my first, but I say annular eclipse, I think, is the first that I see.
I'm very grateful to so many kind individuals very willing to share their telescope and let us view it through the lenses and the filters. So it's amazing.
More people than what we initially expected, because when we planned this as far back as 2 years ago, we looked for a lot of places, but at the end of the day, we ended up with Marina Barrage because, of the unobstructed big space. It's also a bit windy. We're only expecting about 500, but right now we are estimating it closer to 2,000 to 3,000 people. And there's a very long queue, of people trying to get their hands on eclipse glasses, on the first level. So essentially, I find that, we all feel that it's unprecedented.
It was a wonderful time, really. All the crowd here and the people, the reaction of the people and the ring. Unfortunately, a little bit cloudy, but better than we expected.
The eclipse today is actually an eye-opener. So this is my first time having the experience with my eclipse. So I think if there's future events, I will still consider.
It's absolutely amazing. When I say life-changing, because it's the once in a 40 years old event, yeah. So yeah, it's like quite life-changing, I say.
I must say that it's one of the best eclipses you've ever watched.
Wow, clearly a lot of people really enjoyed the event right there. Now, to see more videos of the annular eclipse, you can visit our website at straitstimes.com. While many celebrated Christmas, Hong Kong anti-government protesters kept up with the protests. While they chanted pro-democracy slogans at seasonally decorated shopping malls, police fired tear gas to disperse crowds gathering on nearby streets. The protests in Hong Kong have been largely peaceful for much of December after pro-democracy candidates overwhelmingly won district council elections the month before. Hong Kong's pro-Beijing leaders have made no concessions to the protesters, although they acknowledge their defeat in the polls. The rallies have also turned more confrontational over the festive period. The hospital authorities said 25 people had been injured overnight, including one man who fell from the second to the first floor of a shopping mall as he tried to escape the police. To discuss more on the situation in Hong Kong, we have regional correspondent Elizabeth Law in the studio right now. Welcome, Liz.
Hi.
Now, Liz, if you could tell us, start us off, what is the situation now in Hong Kong?
Well, obviously, as you can see from the videos, it's not great. It's really not ideal. Christmas is actually quite a big holiday in Hong Kong because they, unlike in Singapore, we've only got Christmas Day off. They've got Christmas Eve is huge, Christmas Day, and they celebrate Boxing Day as well. This is leftover from colonial times.
Yeah.
So, what has happened as we've seen from those clips is that on Christmas Eve, which is a big night for families to get together for dinner and all of that, protesters were going out around the streets of Tsim Sha Tsui and Mong Kok. And we saw that police were trying to disperse protesters from outside of the Peninsula Hotel, which is a really, really fancy, it's like the equivalent of the Raffles Hotel in Hong Kong. So, I mean, when you contrast the scenes of celebration with this, is not great, but I think that sort of contrast also shows that the divide in Hong Kong right now is still very split, very divided, very angry city.
Right. Now, Liz, let's focus on a certain event. Now, police shut down a bank account linked to a group supporting protesters and arrested several activists for money laundering. What does this mean for the movement right now?
Right, okay, so maybe a little bit of background first. Okay, so this group, Spark Alliance, was set up in 2016 to support protesters. It came after the Umbrella Movement in 2014, and now protesters have been arrested and had to go for court trials. They couldn't work, and so Spark Alliance is a non-profit NGO that it was set up to help them, be it with their legal fees or be with their daily necessities, daily allowances, that sort of thing. So obviously a lot more people, because these protests this year have gone on for way longer, and so a lot more people have been turning to this Spark Alliance for help. And so they have a corporate account with HSBC.
Right.
Now, last month, HSBC had frozen their corporate account because they said that the source of money is slightly dubious and they don't know exactly where it's coming from. And so they froze their account. Now, a lot of people said that this was being targeted at the protesters, at this protest movement. But to be fair, in any jurisdiction around the world, this is something that they would have done to comply with international anti-money laundering regulations. So it's something that they have done. What this means for the movement, yes, it's going to be a little bit harder because police had previously frozen the assets of another group called the 612 Fund that was also to help protesters. So it may mean that the movement financially will be a little bit more constrained now, but I think what we have seen from the past 6, almost 7 months now is that this movement is resilient and it probably will still continue. In what form? I'm not sure.
Now, Liz, so what's next for Hong Kong? I think a lot of people are wondering, right? How far into the new year can we expect protests to continue? I mean, are we looking at Chinese New Year bringing a pause to the movement or to the protests?
Right. So, two things. Maybe in the more immediate future, next week, on New Year's Day, the Western New Year, there already has been a protest that has been planned by the CHRF, the Civil Human Rights Front, which is the biggest protest organisers in Hong Kong. And so far, all their protests draw huge crowds, so I think we can expect the same on New Year's Day. But as to whether or not it's going to descend into violence, as we've seen in all these other recent protests, we are not sure. In the long run, we are expecting elections for the Legislative Council next year. So it could really give this protest yet another move, and it really all remains to be seen. But we can only hope for the best.
Well, thank you so much, Liz, for coming on to the show. Really like what you mentioned. It remains to be seen as to how this protest is going to move forward, right? Now, to read more on the Hong Kong protests, of course, you can visit our website at straitstimes.com. And now let's move on to What's Trending, where Dylan will share with us what's buzzing in the internetverse. Over to you, Dylan.
Thanks, Aranto. It's time for What's Trending. First up, while some of us are still feeling the effects of indulging over Christmas, let's see how it was celebrated around the world. Here are two of my favorites. The first, a selfie in front of a tree in the abandoned city of Pripyat, not far from Chernobyl in Ukraine. It is the first time in 33 years that a tree was set up in the exclusion zone. And equally powerful is this shot of Archbishop Jose H. Gomez visiting inmates at Men's Central Jail in Los Angeles. Powerful pictures. Now you can see more images of Christmas from around the globe at straitstimes.com. Now moving on, the Christmas spirit can take many forms. A man in the US robbed a bank in Colorado just 2 days before Christmas. He then threw the money in the air and wished passers-by a Merry Christmas. Witnesses say the man, believed by police to be 65 years old, then wandered to a nearby Starbucks and waited to be arrested. In a particularly festive gesture, passers-by reportedly scooped up all the money from the street before taking it back to the bank. Kudos, guys. And finally, in Singapore, looks like crime does not pause for Christmas. Police have received multiple reports on Christmas Day from victims who claim that they were tricked into buying fake AirPods online. 2 suspects have since been arrested and, if convicted of the offence of cheating, may be jailed for up to 10 years and fined. And that's all we have for What's Trending today. If you've seen a story you want to share, link it in the comment section below. Back to you, Haryanto.
Thanks, Dylan. I wouldn't know which Christmas picture to choose as well. I think most of them are my favourites. Moving on to our last segment. 7 months ago, Mr. John Low survived after floating adrift at sea for 80 hours. He is now looking forward to spending time with his loved ones this holiday period. On May 4th, Mr. Low, a diving enthusiast, set off from Mersing for a dive trip to Tioman Island. Caught in a heavy rain, his vessel was flooded and he found himself adrift, hanging to a life buoy he had managed to grab from his boat. After 80 painful hours in the open sea, his skin charred by the sun and stung by salt water, he was spotted by crew members of a passing ship. The Republic of Singapore Air Force's search and rescue team was scrambled and picked him up. Mr. Low has since recovered well and his lungs, which had ruptured and become inflamed during his sea ordeal, finally healed. Now, we caught up with Mr. Low and his wife Eva earlier to see how he has been. Hi, John, Eva. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I understand that you're on a holiday in Malaysia right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much. You know, John, if you could share with us, right, briefly, how has life changed for you since the incident? You know, let's talk about the recovery phase. And of course, you know, how much has life changed for you ever since the incident 7 months ago?
Wow. Okay. Definitely. I still can't believe I'm still here. That is one thing for sure. Everyone tells me that it has been 80 hours. It's impossible, but I still don't. I still can't imagine. But of course, I must only say that it's because of my only one God that can bring me back. What has happened has become so impossible to believe, but it is true. I'm here. So I would say that I think when I went back to the ship to visit the captain and the people who saw me and saved me, they actually make me a birthday cake and say that I'm reborn. So, so I'm 1 year old today.
Wow. Eva, I understand that, you know, John speaks fondly of you as his pillar of strength. Eva, if you could share with us, you know, how was it like for you, you know, knowing that your husband, John, you know, has gone through that ordeal and seeing him on the hospital bed like that, and now that he has recovered, how has the whole experience been for you, Eva?
I can say that time is actually really a shock for me in my life. It's like sudden lost husband. Then what I do is that I pray to God, and also I asking all my friends, and then support, and then pray for my husband as well. And we will do. I and my children, our children, will do a very best level that we can to find John. But the nightmare is actually at night. I've been alone that time. Then look at my husband's picture, and then I felt for him for so many days. We go through the sunlight, then dark at night, alone he himself at sea. And I wish that I can say a last goodbye for my husband if I really can't find him, if I really can't see my husband anymore. But I have switched myself to a very, very positive, that always there is the hope that I want to pray to God and saying that please bring the husband back to me, please bring John back to me. Right now he's dead. My husband right now is actually with me. I really, really want to thank God and send back my husband back to me. So for me right now can celebrate Christmas and also his birthday.
And I understand, John and Eva, that both of you are on a holiday right now in Malaysia, visiting some relatives, and I understand that you guys are going to be going around as well to a few countries. So what are your plans, you know, for this holiday season? And John, just now you spoke briefly as well that you're not going to give up diving as well. Tell us more about that, you know, moving forward, given this new lease of life. What are your plans?
I think most important is during this time, Christmas and the New Year, my family is very important to me. Time with my children, time with Eva, I think that is something which it's so unexplainable, more than precious. And I think this kind of feeling, it's all, it's very hard to explain, but we can only thought that this kind of dream can come true again and again. It's like going through another honeymoon again and again.
Thank you, John and Eva. Certainly we're glad that you have gone through this ordeal and come out strong and well. Certainly a very heartwarming story for this festive period right here. Again, we would like to wish all the best to John and Eva, and as well as to their family. To read more on John's sea ordeal, you can check it out on our website, straitstimes.com. And those are the top stories for today. For more news and video, you can visit straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman. See you tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.